Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Today's story begins, not with love, not with cheating, but with chips. Tortilla chips, to be exact. I think I want an open marriage, she said, dipping into the guacamole like she hadn't just tossed a live grenade between us. She licked salt off her thumb and looked at me like we were discussing vacation plans. We weren't. We were standing at the snack table in Blake's backyard. Blake, the kind of guy who calls every woman, queen, and every man, brother, while casually showing off his hot tub. He had a man bun, a podcast, and, apparently, my wife's attention. I didn't react right away. My ears started ringing. It could have been the music, or maybe the part of my brain that controls sanity had just given up. Everyone else at the party was laughing, drinking, or loudly debating which streaming service ruined television. Meanwhile, I was standing next to the woman I married, watching her toss my world into the salsa without flinching. She said it again. Louder this time. I want an open marriage. I still said nothing. Because how do you respond to that at a party? When you're holding a flimsy paper plate and 2 deviled eggs? The people around us, Blake included, went quiet for a second, then awkwardly laughed. One of her friends said, "OMG, Lena, you're so bold." Bold? I felt like I was watching my own humiliation in real time. A glitch in the simulation. Somewhere between the bean dip and the Bluetooth speaker, I'd been reduced to a decorative husband, a prop for her edgy announcement. So I set the plate down. Wiped my hands. And in a voice I barely recognized as mine, I said. Not in my marriage. I'm done. It was like throwing a bucket of cold water on the whole backyard. People stopped mid-bite. The playlist didn't skip, but reality did. She stared at me. Not angrily. Not with regret. But with a frozen, twitching smile that cracked as fast as my patience. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just left. No drama. No scene. I walked out past the tiki torches and couples pretending not to whisper. I heard someone mutter, "Was he serious?" Yes. I was. What came next, though, the texts, the voicemail from Blake, the hidden messages I found the next day, that was just the beginning. Because her open idea. It wasn't new. And I was the last to know. The night after that party didn't feel real. I sat in my car parked 2 blocks from our house, hands on the steering wheel, keys untouched in the ignition. I stared out at nothing while streetlights buzzed like they were the only things still working in my life. My phone buzzed too, not with texts from her, but notifications from a group chat I didn't care about anymore. She hadn't messaged. Not a single word. I thought maybe she'd follow me. Call me. Pretend it was a joke gone too far. But no. She just stayed. With him. With them. Eventually, I drove home. When I stepped inside, the lights were off. The living room still smelled like her perfume, that sweet vanilla scent that used to feel like home. Now it just clung to the walls like a lie that wouldn't air out. She came in hours later. Didn't say anything. Just walked past me in the hallway like I was the neighbor's dog. Not even a glance. I slept on the couch. Or I tried to. But my mind was stuck on repeat, not just on the moment she said it, but everything before it. And suddenly all the little things that never made sense started forming a pattern. The nights she worked late. The texts she would answer in the bathroom. The sudden interest in yoga, even though she hated stretching. And Blake. God, Blake. He wasn't just the coworker with the backyard parties. He was the only one she ever mentioned by name when talking about work. She used to say, "Blake's so annoying," with that little laugh that women use when they're low-key obsessed with someone. I thought nothing of it at the time. Now it felt like a breadcrumb trail I was too stupid to follow. The next morning, I decided I couldn't just let it go. I needed the truth, not the Instagram-filtered version Lena was pretending to live. I waited until she left for her Sunday hike, because of course she started hiking, alone, this year, and I opened her laptop. Yes. I know. It's a violation of trust. But trust left the building somewhere between the nachos and her proposal for emotional anarchy. She hadn't even logged out of her email. At first, it was just boring stuff. Work memos. A coupon for moisturizer. But then. I saw it. A folder labeled drafts. Not sent. Drafts. Like she never intended to send them, or like she was hiding them in plain sight. And that's where I found them. Emails to Blake. Dozens of them. Paragraphs about me. About how I stopped being fun. About how she felt alive again when they were together. How he made her feel seen, that phrase people love to throw around when they're trying to justify betrayal. And the worst one. She had drafted a message for me. It started with, "If you loved me, you'd let me explore this. Love shouldn't be a cage." A cage. That's what our marriage was to her. 13 years of shared holidays, hospital visits, frozen pizzas, and Sunday morning grocery runs, reduced to a cage she wanted to escape. I felt sick. Physically sick. I slammed the laptop shut and paced the kitchen like I was waiting for a bomb to go off. Because something had gone off. Inside me. And I knew then, this wasn't about openness. This was about replacement. And I had already been replaced. The only thing left to do was figure out how long ago it happened, and what they were planning next. I waited until nightfall to confront her. I don't know why. Maybe I thought giving it time would help me calm down. Or maybe some dumb part of me hoped she'd bring it up first, that she'd feel guilty, come clean, try to fix what she'd cracked. But of course, that didn't happen. Lena came home after sunset with a smoothie in hand, acting like she hadn't just spent the day pretending we weren't in the middle of marital implosion. I watched her from across the living room. She took off her shoes, flopped onto the couch, scrolled through her phone. Not a glance in my direction. Not a single trace of discomfort. So I asked her. Not gently. Not strategically. Just. How long has it been going on? Her eyes didn't even flinch. She didn't ask what I was talking about. She knew. And instead of panicking, she looked relieved. I figured you'd go through my laptop, she said. That knocked the air right out of me. No anger. No shame. Just, calm. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like this moment had been anticipated, calculated, inevitable. So it's Blake? I asked, though I didn't need the answer. And she nodded. Technically, it started before him, she said. But he's the only one I've actually connected with. Emotionally, I mean. That word. Technically. It burned. She was dissecting our vows like they were contractual clauses. Like love had loopholes. I asked the only question I could force out next. Why didn't you just leave me? She gave me this baffled look, like I'd asked why the sky was blue. Because I didn't want to, she said. I still care about you. You're stable. You're good to me. But you're predictable. Blake's not. He challenges me. He makes me feel excited. Alive. I just stood there. Motionless. My entire identity, husband, partner, best friend, boiled down to the word predictable. Then she said something I'll never forget. I thought you'd be okay with it eventually. You're not exactly the jealous type. I laughed. Not out of humor, but because I couldn't believe how wrong she was. I wasn't the jealous type. I was the loyal type. The stick around through the hard stuff type. The fix it before it breaks type. But now I realized that was the problem. She didn't want that. She wanted someone chaotic. Someone who would light a fire under her life even if it meant burning the house down. And she wasn't done. She told me, not asked, that she was going to continue seeing Blake. That she hoped I would come around to the idea of non-monogamy. That she believed marriages needed to evolve to survive. I told her I didn't agree. That it felt like betrayal. She sighed. Actually sighed. Like I was the one being difficult. You don't have to do it too, she said. Just let me have this part of my life. You still have everything else. But I didn't. Not really. What I had was a hollowed-out version of my marriage, stripped of exclusivity, honesty, and trust, the three things I thought made love real. She went to bed like it was any other night. Pulled the covers over her shoulders. Left her phone face down on the nightstand. I slept in the guest room. I stared at the ceiling until 4 a.m. Heart pounding, thoughts spiraling, wondering how many other truths she was hiding in drafts and half-finished conversations. This wasn't about freedom. This was about replacement. I was being phased out, slowly and surgically, like a job she didn't want to quit but didn't want to keep either. And I had a terrible suspicion. I wasn't just being replaced in her life. I was being replaced in mine. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the coffee grinder. She was already in the kitchen, humming, actually humming, like we were a normal couple, like she hadn't just told me the night before that she was emotionally involved with another man. Her mug read, "Good vibes only," which, at that moment, felt like a cosmic joke. I didn't say good morning. I couldn't. I felt like I was trapped in some twisted reality show where everyone else knew the plot except me. I sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room, staring at the wall for maybe 20 minutes. My stomach was tight, like it knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. And then something hit me. A terrible, gnawing thought. This wasn't just about her feelings. This was logistics. If she was already seeing someone else, emotionally or otherwise, what else had she planned for that future? I rushed to my home office and opened my laptop. Our finances had always been a shared responsibility, but in practice, I was the one who checked balances, paid the bills, set up our savings. She had access, but rarely used it. Or so I thought. When I logged into our joint account, my hands started to shake. There were transfers. Small ones at first. Just enough to not raise red flags. $300 here. $500 there. Then larger amounts, $2,000, $3,000, moved from our joint savings to an account I didn't recognize. It had her name on it. I clicked into the transfer history, each date punching me in the chest. The first one. 8 weeks ago. Well before the party. Before her confession. Before the open marriage proposal. This wasn't impulsive. This was orchestrated. She was moving money. Preparing. There was more. Our travel rewards card, the one we used sparingly for trips together, had a new set of bookings. A weekend getaway. 2 first-class seats. A luxury cabin in the mountains. Date set for next month. I looked at the guest name listed next to hers. Blake. My vision went blurry. My temples throbbed. I felt like I was watching someone erase me from my own life with clinical precision. She wasn't leaving me. No. That would have been too direct. Too honest. Instead, she was constructing a dual reality, keeping me in place for convenience, for the image, maybe even for the mortgage, while quietly shifting her real life towards someone else. It was like watching a building being lifted off its foundation while the tenant was still inside, unaware. And the sickest part? She told me she loved me just last week. Love evolves, she'd said when I brought it up. No. Love doesn't evolve into fraud. I closed the laptop, hands clammy, head spinning. I walked to the kitchen, barely holding it together. She was on the phone, giggling, no doubt talking to him. When she saw me, she mouthed, "Morning," like we were still good. Like nothing had changed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confront her right there. But something stopped me. If she was willing to lie so easily, so fluidly, what else was she willing to do? What else had she changed without telling me? Instead of exploding, I nodded, turned around, and walked back to my office. Not to avoid the confrontation, but to prepare. Because now I knew this wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about survival. And she wasn't just cheating on me emotionally. She was cheating me out of the life we built together. And if I didn't act fast, I'd be the last one to know when it all disappeared. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I just laid in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many more layers of betrayal were hiding behind her smiles and soft-spoken lies. My heart wasn't broken anymore, it was hollow. A kind of numbness had started to set in, and with it, an instinct I never thought I'd develop in my own marriage: paranoia. It sounds dramatic, I know. But after finding out about the money transfers, the weekend getaway, and her ongoing emotional affair disguised as freedom, I couldn't shake the feeling that there were more people involved. That I wasn't just being cheated on, I was being mocked. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I made a list of our closest friends and family, the people we saw most often. I opened their social media accounts, one by one, and started digging. What I found made my stomach twist. Let me tell you about Tessa, Lena's best friend since college. I always thought she was a little too invested in our relationship. Always offering unsolicited advice, always smirking when I said something that wasn't cool enough. I scrolled through her Instagram and found a post from 3 weeks ago, a group selfie at a brewery. Lena, Tessa, and Blake. Captioned, "The best people know how to share happiness." I stared at it for minutes, dissecting the phrasing, the expressions. Blake had his arm around Lena's waist, subtle, but it was there. And not a single comment mentioned me. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even referred to. I'd been erased. But that wasn't the worst part. The next person on my list was Josh, my so-called friend, someone I'd known since high school. He and I had drifted a bit over the years, but he still came around for barbecues, still messaged me during football season. I opened his recent posts and froze. He'd commented on one of Lena's photos. A beach shot from 2 months ago, the one she said she took while on a solo wellness retreat. His comment? "Glad you finally did it. You deserve to be happy." I wanted to punch the wall. Not because she cheated. Not because she lied. But because the people around me, the ones I thought were my people, were in on it. Maybe not all of them knew the details, but they weren't shocked. They weren't warning me. They were encouraging her. I started putting the pieces together, little things I'd ignored. The sideways glances. The subtle shifts in conversation. The times people changed subjects when I walked into a room. They knew. And I was the joke. The husband holding the leash while the dog ran wild. Lena came home late that night. She didn't explain where she'd been, and I didn't ask. I just watched her move around the kitchen like everything was normal. Like she wasn't dismantling our life piece by piece while everyone else watched. Then something happened that changed everything. She handed me a piece of mail. A legal notice. It was a preliminary document about property division in cases of marital restructuring. Not divorce. Not separation. Restructuring. She smiled while handing it over, like it was just paperwork. Like it was the next step in some exciting new journey we were taking together. I didn't open it right away. I couldn't. I just stood there, holding it like it was radioactive. She poured herself a glass of wine and said, "This doesn't have to be messy. If we do it right, we can still be friends." Friends. That was her word for it. Friends, while she slept with Blake. Friends, while she emptied our accounts behind my back. Friends, while my friends cheered her on like she was starting a successful business and not committing emotional arson. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, walked out to the backyard, and stood in the dark for a long time. I could hear her laughing at something on her phone through the open window. Probably texting him. Or Tessa. Or both. That was the night I realized, this wasn't just betrayal. This was removal. A quiet, coordinated effort to phase me out of my own life while convincing me it was a mutual decision. And I'd played along. But not anymore. The next morning, I woke up before her. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't shower. I didn't even change out of the wrinkled shirt I had slept in. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the unopened envelope she had handed me the night before, the so-called marital restructuring form. The paper was still crisp, untouched. She hadn't even bothered to explain it fully. She just handed it over like a birthday card, expecting me to sign away the foundation of our life with a smile. The idea that she believed I would go along with it, that I'd be too weak or too slow to realize what was happening, woke something in me I hadn't felt in months. Maybe even years. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not quietly. So I did what any pathetic, heartbroken man on the edge of a breakdown would do. I printed everything. Every transfer. Every airline booking. Screenshots of emails, messages, comment threads, old texts she had forgotten to delete. I built a folder, thick and color-coded, not to give to a lawyer, not yet, but to show her. I wanted her to see what I saw. I wanted to hold it all in front of her and force her to look. That afternoon, she came home early. It was a Wednesday. She never came home early on Wednesdays. She had her hair up in that messy bun she only ever wore when she got ready in someone else's car. Her makeup was smudged just slightly, like it had been touched up, not freshly applied. She looked like someone who had been out with a secret and thought she'd gotten away with it. When she saw me standing in the living room, her smile vanished. I wasn't waiting with sarcasm or a fight. I wasn't even angry on the outside. I was still. Focused. I handed her the folder. "What's this?" she asked, not touching it. "Open it." She rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes, and then, reluctantly, flipped it open. Page 1, the bank transfers. Page 2, the email drafts. Page 3, the booking confirmation with Blake's name. Page 4, screenshots from her friend's social media. And on it went. For the first time in weeks, I saw her blink like a real person. "You went through my stuff?" she asked, her voice hard. "I live in this life. I have every right to know who's rewriting it behind my back." There was a long pause. I expected tears. I expected excuses. I even stupidly hoped for an apology. But instead, she did something I'll never forget. She laughed. Soft at first. Then louder. A full, condescending laugh that bounced off the walls and shattered any remaining illusions I had about who she was. "God, you really still think this is about you," she said, flipping the folder closed. "You're like a sitcom husband, always 5 steps behind." My mouth went dry. "I tried to talk to you about this months ago," she continued. "You ignored it. You said everything was fine. You thought a weekend getaway would fix us. You thought bringing me coffee in the mornings was enough to keep me from outgrowing you." "I never stopped loving you," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. She sighed like I had just said the most boring thing imaginable. "That's not the same as understanding me." Then came the final blow. She pulled out her phone and texted someone. Seconds later, a knock at the door. I thought maybe it was Tessa. Maybe someone neutral to play mediator. No. It was Blake. He walked in like he lived there. Like he'd already picked out a drawer for his clothes. And he didn't speak to me. Not once. He just walked up to her, kissed her on the cheek, and asked if she was ready to go. She looked at me one last time. "We're going to Tessa's for dinner," she said. "You can stay here if you want. I'll be back late." I didn't answer. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stood there as the two of them walked out of my house, laughing as they went. I could hear them joking before the front door even closed. And in that silence, surrounded by all the paper proof of my erasure, one thought kept circling in my mind. I was the only one who didn't know the game had already ended. After they left that night, Lena and Blake, laughing and carefree like this was just the next chapter in their adorable little modern love story, I sat down at the kitchen table, in complete silence. My hands rested on the closed folder of evidence I had spent hours compiling, the one she dismissed like it was a bad Yelp review. I thought seeing it would wake her up. I thought maybe guilt still lived somewhere behind her eyes. But no. What I saw in her was worse than defiance, it was peace. Peace with what she was doing. Like she had already mourned our marriage and moved on while I was still tucking her side of the blanket in at night. I didn't sleep. Again. I couldn't. Something in me had shifted. I was past heartbreak, past rage, past even sadness. What I felt now was something colder. Numb. Mechanical. Like I was watching my life from outside my own body. The next morning, I made a decision. I called her mother. We'd always had a decent relationship. Not overly close, but respectful. I asked if we could talk privately. At first, she seemed confused, then concerned. I drove over to her place and laid it all out. The affair. The money. The manipulated paperwork. Everything. I expected shock. Maybe some denial. What I didn't expect was the look on her face when I finished. It wasn't surprise. It was sadness. Not the kind you show when hearing bad news, but the kind that comes from a place of long-held knowledge. I wondered when it would come to this, she said, gently setting her tea down. Lena's always had a habit of leaving things without saying goodbye. She did it with friendships. Jobs. She doesn't know how to stay still. I just stared at her. She always needed someone to blame when she got restless, her mother continued. I hoped you would be different. I hoped you would be enough. I didn't know what to say to that. The idea that being enough was the thing I had failed at, that she had been slowly disassembling us out of boredom, hit me in a way nothing else had. But I wasn't done. That evening, I asked her to talk. One last conversation. Not to fix anything, I knew better by then, but to understand. I needed to understand how someone who once whispered, forever, could now hand me legal paperwork like it was a dinner receipt. She agreed. Probably because, in her mind, the damage was already done. We sat on the back porch. She had a glass of wine. I had nothing. I don't hate you, I said, quietly. She looked surprised. I hate that I still love you, I continued. Even now. Even after everything. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just looked at me the way someone might look at a tree they used to climb as a kid, familiar, but irrelevant now. Then she said it. I didn't cheat to hurt you. I just felt like I wasn't finished becoming who I was supposed to be. I blinked, trying to comprehend the selfishness wrapped in philosophical fluff. You made me feel safe, she said. But Blake made me feel seen. You were the steady hand. He was the open door. And you needed the door more than the hand, I muttered. She nodded. Then she added the line that truly shattered me. I don't regret the life we built. I just don't want to keep living in it. That was it. No apology. No ownership. Just a soft-spoken eulogy for a marriage I was still fighting for, delivered with the casual detachment of someone packing up after a weekend getaway. That night, I moved out. Not because I had nowhere to go, but because I finally realized I had nowhere to stay. The version of Lena I loved didn't exist anymore. Or maybe she never did. Maybe I built her in my head, brick by brick, based on fragments and hope. I didn't leave a note. I didn't make a scene. But I did leave one thing behind. On the kitchen counter, next to the coffee maker where I used to leave her little morning messages, I placed the folder. Wide open. All the pages spread out like crime scene photos. And on top, a single sticky note. You win. Whatever game this was, it's yours now. I didn't tell anyone where I went. No big announcements, no cryptic social media posts. Just packed my bags, shut the door behind me, and started driving. I didn't even know the destination. All I knew was I couldn't stay in that house one more minute, surrounded by the memories of someone who had already replaced me before I even knew I was being replaced. I ended up in a small coastal town 3 hours away. Rented a short-term place above a bookstore that smelled like dust and sea salt. The kind of place where no one asks your name, and everyone minds their own business. I got a part-time job fixing up old bikes at a shop run by a retired engineer named Marty. He didn't talk much, which was perfect. I had too many thoughts and not enough words. The first few weeks were hard. I kept checking my phone, half hoping for a message from Lena saying she'd made a mistake. That she wanted to talk. That she missed me. But it never came. And slowly, I stopped expecting it. The silence, which at first had felt like punishment, started to feel like freedom. One morning, maybe 5 weeks after I left, I got an email from her. The subject line was just closure. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs. She said she hoped I was okay. She admitted that things had moved too fast with Blake and that she had romanticized freedom more than she understood it. She said she didn't regret her choices but regretted how she made them. And at the end, she wrote, "You always gave me stability, but I never realized how much I leaned on it until you were gone. I hope you find someone who never confuses peace for boredom." I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I'd already found something better than an apology. I found myself. Somewhere along the ocean roads, in the rhythm of quiet mornings, in the conversations I had with no one but my own thoughts. I started becoming a man who didn't need to be chosen to feel worthy. I've made friends here. Real ones. I started writing again, not long emotional rants like this, okay, maybe still those too, but fiction. Short stories, scripts, even poems. Things I hadn't touched since college. I've lost weight. I laugh more. I sleep better. And no, I'm not dating yet. But I'm also not lonely. For the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm just walking, step by step, towards something better. Maybe Lena thought she was setting herself free when she blindsided me that night at the party. But the truth is, she set me free, too. Thank you for sticking with my story. If you've ever been through something like this, a betrayal, a moment where your world split in two, I'd love to hear about it. What helped you heal? What moment shifted everything for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's support each other through this mess we call life. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the channel. This is Reddit Confessions, where the truth always finds its way out.